Hey everybody, thanks for watching again. We're so glad to be launching into a new series on Sunday. Before we get there, I want to give you our tip and trick of the week. And it's from the series of kind of tips on leading small groups. It's called The Art of Asking Questions. This week we're talking about the idea of be positive. Demonstrating positivity is magical. Students have way too much negativity in their lives, so they don't really need more negativity and negative feedback during small group time. Small groups should be encouraging, and if students are being negative towards each other, I encourage you kill that negativity immediately by redirecting them to what would be helpful in that moment. If your group is consistently finding itself off track or off topic, feel free to chat with me. I'll even buy your coffee or something or lunch so that we can talk about some strategy and some positive strategies to bring about everybody back into the group without getting negative or without talking down to the group or getting angry or anything like that. Now, I don't get it right every time. There are times where I slip into negativity or come down on people, and I don't mean to, but the moral of the tip for this week is just try to stay positive, look and have positive intent on those around us, and the more we can remember to be positive and have positive intent, the better and safer our relationships can be. So that's really what we're looking at for this week as our tip, and we're launching into a new series called Once Upon a Time. It's all about this idea of stories and the power that stories have in our lives. When we were little, all the great stories started with this idea of once upon a time. They were the stories of good guys and bad guys, princes and princesses, dragons, evil queens, bossy stepsisters, tiny dwarves, and fairy godmothers. Now our students are reading stories about maze runners, Hunger Games, vampires, slightly different kind of once upon a time, but the same kind of thing. Stories have always had the power to affect people, and Jesus knew that. In fact, Jesus often used storytelling when he wanted to teach people of his time. Now, in his time, those stories were called parables, and he told a lot of them. One reason Jesus told so many stories is because he knew that telling stories does more than just share facts. He knew stories have more potential and more power. They have feeling, they have emotion behind them, and it's feelings that we all have just because we're human. For example, our students are running through things of, well, feelings of not measuring up, or feelings of insecurity, or feelings of not getting noticed, or not being appreciated. Think about your favorite movie or favorite story. Probably has some sort of these components as the main character. Think Batman, Superman, Elsa from Frozen had these kind of feelings, these insecurities, the not measuring up, the not being noticed. Now, these are some of the most personal things that we could ever feel. And at some point or another, we can all relate to have this feeling of less than when we're compared to somebody else. Now, while we've all shared similar feelings, the way we react to them is different. Jesus addressed these feelings in a big way. And why does Jesus address them, and how does Jesus address them? I think because that's his fully human side. Jesus is fully human and fully divine, so his fully human side goes, man, I've probably felt those things of feeling less than. But then Jesus' fully divine side says, well, let me share the wisdom from God that I have about that. See, Jesus had a tendency to attract two very different kinds of people. He would attract the Pharisees and the outcasts. Now, the Pharisees saw themselves as better than everybody else. And the second group, the outcasts, were basically the opposite of the Pharisees. They were nowhere near having their act together. They knew it, everybody around them knew that, and because of this, they were always considered less than. Now, even if you're not in a church or not into God, for our students, there may be students in your group that aren't into God or aren't into church. But we have to be a little bit fascinated by how these two groups are drawn to the same guy. You have the better than crowd that's annoyed by Jesus. They thought Jesus should spend more time talking about how good they were and how right they were at this whole religion thing. And you have the less than crowd that loved him because Jesus liked them, because Jesus saw them, because they felt the same things you and I feel. They felt insecure, overlooked, insignificant at times, and Jesus made them feel something that no other religious person had ever made them feel. No other Pharisee had ever made them feel, and that was accepted. Now, the stories we're going to look at today tell us how Jesus did that. So it starts out in Luke chapter 15, where he tells the story of the lost sheep. So you can feel free to read that. Luke chapter 15, verses 4 through 7, talks about how the shepherd leaves the 99 to go find the one. And in that time, the first thing the crowd probably noticed, it's something that Jesus says from the very beginning. It says, a man left his 99 sheep to find one that was lost. Now, if you're an animal lover, that might make sense. But sheep weren't like pets, they were products in that time. And while it would have been sad to lose one sheep, it would have made no sense for the shepherd to leave the other 99 protected to go find it. Now, everybody listening would have been confused at this point, because to them it's never worth the 99 to go find the one. One less than would have never been worth more than the 99 better thans. But with this story, that's exactly what Jesus is saying. Jesus is saying that finding the one is worth risking the other 99. And to those listening that felt less than, this would have been more than just surprising. It would have been unbelievable that that's true, because they've always felt less than. Now, Jesus goes on to say that when the man comes back with the sheep that had wandered away, he doesn't lecture the sheep. He doesn't make it look bad in front of the others. The story says the man rejoiced. He got his friends together to tell them the good news. The man is so caught up in finding that one sheep that the wandering away isn't even an issue anymore. That there's rejoicing, there's happiness, there's not dwelling on the mess-ups and the wandering away and the mistake that sheep made. And in case people thought this story was a fluke, or just the one happenstance and occurrence out of another, Jesus tells another story. It says, suppose a woman has 10 silver coins. You remember this story? Luke chapter 15, verse 8 through 10. Talks about this woman who loses a coin, and she flips over her house looking for it because it is that precious to her. Different story, same exact idea. And the idea is that God cares about lost things. God cares about making sure everyone, no matter who you are or how you feel, understands the value of that God sees in you. Now, one point is he goes after lost things. The one thing that we're looking at with these two parables is Jesus goes after lost things, undervalued things, underappreciated things, ignored things, things that matter enough to make them found. Now, God sees you and celebrates you. God never stops running after you. So what are we taking from these stories this week to apply to our lives? Jesus tells these stories because he wants you to understand how valuable you are to him. Not because of what you've done or haven't done, not because of your grade point average, your sports stats, your relationship status, but because you're worth it. Because you are you. And God will never stop running after you or those around you. Even if the world thinks they're less than, know that God sees them as more than. And God doesn't worry about or dwell on the past and the wandering away like the sheep did. God doesn't dwell on that when we turn to him and go, no, God, I'm coming back. God doesn't dwell on what we did or our sins or our mistakes. God simply rejoices. God is after you. He wants you to be found so he can celebrate you. And so you can start believing what the people who heard this message for the first time 2,000 years ago believed. And that message is you are prized. You are significant. You matter. You are worth going after at all cost. And so is everybody around you. And Jesus is after something more than any other religious leader, any other religion that we're talking about or can look at in the world. Jesus is going for more than just a change of behavior. Jesus is interested in a change of the heart. And that's what we're getting into the heart of this week. It's what are these stories, what are these parables that we mostly probably know, that we've heard these stories before of the lost sheep, of the lost coin. But the message behind it is when everybody else says, oh, it's just a coin, oh, it's just one sheep, God says, no, that matters. And it's not what they did that matters, but it's the rejoicing and the happiness that happens when they are found. So as you head into small groups and you head into your week and think about this, start thinking about this one idea. What would it look like? And what does it mean for your life when we begin to change the way we see ourselves and when we begin to change the way that God sees us? That means something for our lives. That calls a response out of us. That's a big deal. So this week we will see you at 4:45 for our leader meeting for the Annona campus people. And for the 360 United campus, Omar will get you guys your information for when you're going to meet ahead of time to pray before youth group begins out there. But for here at Annona campus, we will be at 4:45 p.m. in the lobby for our small group leader huddle. Hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you later. Thanks, guys. Bye.